Good evening again, fellow Toastmasters.
Good evening.
The title of my fourth speech is Photography and What It Means to Me. At the end of my speech, you will gain an understanding of how I came to love photography, some historical moments of my photography, and what photography means to me. Back during the mid-1990s, while living in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, I started taking pictures with my inexpensive camera that utilized 110 film. You all remember that. I eventually invested in my first half-decent 35 millimeter camera, a Kodak camera, 35 bucks. Yes, $35. My main goal at that time was to create some memories when visiting family and friends, as well as in some of my other travels. I used to get my pictures developed at Sam's Club. Of course, I could never wait until I got home to look at them. They were opened as soon as I paid for them. I would immediately look through the pictures, as I was always anxious to make sure that they came out first and foremost, and then to determine whether I did a good job at taking the pictures. I've always had an eye for detail, and I tried to carry this over into my picture taking as well. Over time, everyone came to expect me to be taking pictures, since I always seemed to be ready, willing, and able. I was happy to be able to take pictures, to capture moments in time, establish history in print. This had become my new hobby. I absolutely love taking pictures of people, especially when they weren't looking. Somehow, I seem to capture great shots when taking those in-the-moment pictures. I took great shots of pose pictures also. In the early 2000s is when I learned that I was a really good picture taker. During that time, one of my former friends was managing a local artist. The artist needed a cover photo for his upcoming CD. Granted, I had never taken any photography classes, formal or informal. I had never been asked to do anything that would be seen from a professional standpoint either. Nonetheless, I accepted the request to do a mini photo shoot. We eventually scheduled a day for the shoot. At that time, I lived 2 blocks from the Susquehanna River, which contained a park along the riverfront. This is where we did the shoot. Once the photos were developed, my friend and I went through all of the pictures multiple times, just trying to determine the best one for its intended use. This was the aha moment. While subsequently going through the pictures again and truly admiring my work, I must add, I said to myself, wow, do you realize how great these shots are? You could really be a great photographer. These pictures were a validation that I was a better picture taker than I thought. Ultimately, my friend and the artist had a major blow up, which led to them parting ways. As a result, my pictures were never used. That was fine with me because I had gained some validation from my several years of picture taking at that point. Throughout the years, I continued to take pictures at various events. Some of those events included a trip to New York a week before the towers were attacked. I was fortunate enough to be right at the towers and take pictures of them in all of their illustrious glory. I also took several pictures from the Staten Island Ferry with the towers and the city landscape in the background. Another event where I am so glad I was able to take pictures was a trip home to Virginia. I was called home because a friend had died from breast cancer. Angie was 36. During this time, my cousin and I took a picture with Erica, who was Angie's baby sister. Erica was about 31. Erica was also like a baby sister to me. 14 months later, I was called back home. for Erica's funeral. Like her sister, she too had been diagnosed and died from breast cancer. The picture with Erica, my cousin, and me sits in my living room today. During one of my trips to Atlanta in the early 2000s as well, my cousin took me to meet another cousin. He was hospitalized at the time with heart problems. I also met the hospitalized cousin's wife and their newborn daughter at that time. I'm glad I had my camera with me on that trip because I got to capture those moments in his hospital room. My ill cousin passed away just a few years ago, but the images captured will last a lifetime. Another one of my friends whom I met via chat room in 2001 passed from breast cancer as well about 3 years ago. Yvonne was a sweet person who was a lot of fun. She and her best friend Tony came to one of my parties while I was living in Harrisburg. We had so much fun that holiday weekend, they ended up staying an extra day. We took a bunch of pictures that are still accessible online. I also have these in hard copy on CD. We had other fun times of hanging out together as well. Those times were captured in print and video also. On the fun side, having a camera readily available has allowed me to capture all of the parties that families and friends attended at my home and in some of their home states as well. Throughout the last 10 years, I have attended parties with some former and current chat friends, with many of us traveling from various states at my former house in Harrisburg, in Atlantic City, New York City, the Maryland, DC, Nova area, and here in Atlanta. The final historical photography moment I will share is the making of a 2010 calendar that I did for a scholarship fundraiser. It was my first major photography undertaking under eSilk Design Elements, which is a subsidiary of my company, eSilk. With this project, I traveled all over to Atlanta. What photography means to me is that I can continue to capture memories while enhancing my current skill level. I can capture great photos when people least expect it. I can unite people through photography. And that's just for starters. In closing, I would be fabulous if I said I did not love the art of photography. I hope you have gained an understanding, in part, of how I came to love photography, some historical moments of my photography, and what photography means to me. This concludes my speech.